The old mariners' saying goes, below 40 degrees latitude there is no law. Below 50 there is no God. Cape Horn is located at 56 degrees south latitude. Drake Passage is even lower. And they have such a reputation that it's hard to think of worse. Today you'll learn where the most powerful ocean current is, why sailors were honored to wear an earring in their left ear, and how a private company could stand up to entire nations. Cape Horn, located on the island of the same name, is the southernmost point of the Tierra del Fuego archipelago. From it to Antarctica is more than 800 miles away. It is often mistakenly called the southernmost point of the continental massif of America itself, but this is not entirely true. Such a point is actually Cape Froward, and Cape Horn is still on the island. It is for such places on the planet that the phrase "at the end of the world" is appropriate. To oceans the Atlantic and the Pacific meet here, creating a unique but very treacherous climate for the navigator. The weather on island is mostly windy and overcast. There is almost no sunshine, and the number of rainy days a year is more than 280. The air temperature ranges from minus to plus 14 degrees. The average wind force is 43 ms. Be clear, even the average wind strength on the island is a Category 1 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale, which is why many call the climate in the Cape Horn area the worst on Earth. But such harsh places, at one time, were permanently inhabited by people. Since ancient times, the area between Cape Horn and Beagle Strait has been the fiefdom of the Jagan Indian tribe. Its last pure-blooded member, Christina Calderon, died in February 2022, taking her unique language with her. The Indians traveled by pirogues, hunted sea animals, and fished. Gradually the people began to disappear, and colonizers played a major role in this. Now there are just over 1,000 mestizos left, who have completely lost the Yagan culture and language. Today on Horn Island is the base of the Chilean Navy. There is a lighthouse, chapel, living quarters, and outbuildings. The base is usually looked after by an officer who is accompanied by his family. Such a deployment usually takes a year, and most of the time the family spends in isolation. It is a great way for sailors to spend time with their families, and the trip to the ends of the earth as a family is one that will be remembered for a lifetime. The islanders live in a house with everything they need for a comfortable existence, including internet. An officer maintains the lighthouse and weather station, stamps the passports, communicates with passing ships, and is responsible for the small museum where travelers leave their flags. The second important landmark on the island after the museum is a monument in the form of an albatross. It was erected in 1992 and is dedicated to all the sailors who died in the area. The first sailors to conquer Cape Horn were two Dutchmen, Jacob Lammer and Williams Houghton. It happened in 1616. The cape was named after the town of Hoorn in Holland, whose inhabitants sponsored the voyage. The cape is washed by the waters of the Drake Passage, an intercontinental strait more than 1,000 km wide. It is the widest named strait on Earth. It is also the deepest, up to 5,500 meters. The strait got its name at the dawn of the 20th century, during an imperial trans-Arctic expedition. The Anglo-Irish explorer of the Arctic Ernest Henry Shackleton decided to give it the name of the legendary navigator Francis Drake. It used to be believed that he passed through the strait in 1578, but modern sources deny this information. As in the case of Cape Horn, the honor of the first passage most likely belongs to members of the expedition from Houghton. Drake's Strait has earned a notoriety for several reasons. Firstly, storms often occur here, and they are considered some of the most powerful on the planet. Waves up to 15 meters high are a real phenomenon. And secondly, a lot of problems are caused by the Antarctic circumpolar current, the most powerful in the ocean and the only current on Earth which passes through all the meridians. This current does not meet on its way obstacles in the form of continents or large islands, and develops a maximum speed of 14.5 km/h in the Drake Passage. If the ship goes from the Atlantic to the Pacific, it is much heavier because of the oncoming current and wind. Third, from April to November, the southern part of the strait is covered with ice, so it is not uncommon to see icebergs and ice floes in the summer. But why would it be necessary to risk going around Cape Horn if Magellan had already discovered a safer strait at that time? The fact is that Europeans were very interested in the Moluccas Islands, which were called the storehouse of spices, and spices were very highly valued at that time. Yes, it was possible to reach them both through the Strait of Magellan and the Cape of Good Hope, but only the first route was considered a Spanish monopoly, and the second the Portuguese. Later, since 1602, these routes were monopolized by the Dutch-Austrian Company, the most powerful private company of the time. By 1669 they had 40 warships, 150 commercial vessels, 50,000 employees, and an army of 10,000 soldiers. The company took part in political disputes along with the states. For example, in 1641 it, on its own, without the help of the Dutch state, knocked its rivals, the Portuguese, out of what is now Indonesia. In general, it turned out that for independent traders without serious military support, wishing to get from the Atlantic to the Pacific or vice versa, there was only one way. So the desperate mariners went through the Strait of Drake, round Cape Horn, despite the serious chance to say goodbye to life. Sailing around Cape Horn peaked between 1850 and 1914. It was the dawn of maritime commerce. Australian goods headed for England, tea clippers headed for Europe from India. Gold prospectors from the east coast of the United States crossed into California. It is this time that marks the greatest number of casualties. In all, at least 800 ships met their demise in the Cape Horn area, and more than 10,000 sailors lost their lives. It was not until 1914 that seafarers' lives were greatly simplified. Then the strait lost its former importance, because the Panama Canal, one of mankind's largest and most difficult projects, connecting the Pacific Ocean's Panama Bay to the Caribbean Sea in the Atlantic Ocean, was completed. Thanks to the Panama Canal, it was no longer necessary to sail around South America, and the route was 1,000 kilometers shorter, which had an invaluable contribution to the development of shipping and the economy of the world. These days, going around Cape Horn and through the Drake Passage is an attraction for tourists looking for strong emotions and a serious challenge for travelers who love maritime extremes. Today's expedition ships are equipped with stabilizers, which ensure that they don't rock too much when passing through the strait. Despite modern technology, this route remains dangerous. For example, in 2010, in the middle of the Drake Passage, the liner Clelia was caught in a severe storm, and its engine failed. Fortunately, the liner was rescued and made it, with no loss of life, to the Argentine port of Ushuaia. Nevertheless, this story, and others like it, prove that we can think of ourselves as kings of nature, but in some cases, it is still capable of causing considerable trouble. Although the Drake Passage is harsh on humans, it has managed to become home to many animals. Travelers who choose to cross it stand a good chance of encountering cross-shaped dolphins and humpback whales, giant petrels, and wandering albatrosses. and Horn Island is home to penguins, seals and sea lions. In 2005, Cabo de Hornos National Park, which includes Horn Island, was declared a UNESCO Natural Heritage Site of Humanity. That's all for now, friends. Share the video, write a comment, and be sure to give it likes if you liked it. See you soon.